Hola. So I am live and just a few minutes late. I know I said I'm going to do Tuesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. I'm still trying to work that out a little bit. I've got new cameras, new accessories. I'm trying my damnedest to learn all this. You know what? Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit today about the news because the news has been really disturbing the last, I guess since Monday. It's been disturbing on this, but especially starting from about Tuesday on. I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer. I used to write for Pathos, a column called No Longer Quivering, that had to do with the Evangelical Quiverful movement. And I'm talking about them again today. Why? I keep saying I'm done. And then I see something just utterly stupid come out, and I'm like, okay, I have to talk about this. So I've noticed that there are some creators that are talking about the Titan Submersible tragedy, and it is a tragedy. Even though I don't approve of millionaires buying a seat on a submarine to go look at the wreckage of the Titanic, because the wreckage of the Titanic is one of those places to me that is somewhat sacred, I want to say. I know that sounds kind of silly, but I think there are some places in Earth that we really shouldn't be going, that should be kept more sacred. Mount Everest is one of those. This place is one of those because it is the mass grave site of over 1,000 souls. It's their resting place, literally. And the same thing goes with, oh, thank you so much, Jackie. My yarn fun will love that, even though I really don't need any more yarn. I love that. I'll be buying more anyway. You could never have too much yarn. So this has been something I've always been interested in, besides the fact of the sacredness, I think, of various sites. And there are sites I've been to on Earth that I thought, well, this is a sacred site and really shouldn't be here. And I've never been rich enough to spend $250,000 to get a seat on a submersible. And even if I was, I doubt I would spend my money that way. I've always been more about other things. Oh, yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? Nonsense is, there's always nonsense going on. Well, also, our least favorite creator is talking about this to beat the band. And I've never heard her mention one time ever being interested in this. I've always been interested in the Titanic. Why? Because back when I was a foolish teenager and madly in love for the first time in my life, and I married this fool, he would claim that he had an ancestor that survived the sinking of the Titanic. Well, at the time, being 16 and very, 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 very gullible, I believed him. And it started a lifelong fascination for me with the Titanic. And I don't mean James Cameron's visually sumptuous film. That was not one of my favorites. But I've read books on the subject. I've looked at all kinds of documentaries through the years on the Titanic. I've read every piece of news I could get my hands on about the Titanic through the years, even though I concluded my ex was a giant liar, just like he tried to say he was related to half of Hall & Oates, and I did a family tree, could find no such evidence of that nonsense. So I wasn't married to him very long. He was a lying liar who lied a lot. But my fascination with the Titanic has really stayed with me much longer than the marriage did. And yesterday made myself go back and rewatch a couple of different documentaries on this because I've been watching the news on the submersible going down. You're in the process of buying and moving. I've been listening. You haven't had a chance to respond. I'm doing well. I've just got my knee brace on today, and that's why I'm in my bedroom again, and I'm going to be laying around all day. My knee is worse again, but I'm stupid. I'm a stupid person. I went walking on the beach on Monday because I had no pain, and I thought, ooh, let's go for a beach walk. Big mistake. Now my knee is messed up again. Very mildly, but still, I don't like having pain. Pain sucks. Back to the Titanic. So I made myself rewatch some of the documentaries yesterday. I didn't know about the submersible. I'd heard a little chatter about somebody doing this, and that there were companies that were trying to come up with commercial dives that you could go on to go look at the wreck of the Titanic. And again, not interested in that because, like I said, I think it's kind of a sacred site and probably shouldn't be a commercial site where you can go down and dive it. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site now, so hopefully that'll shut down some of this, and this disaster hopefully will shut down some of that as well. So I made myself yesterday go back and watch a bunch of documentaries, and I wasn't going to even mention this, but something has popped up that when I saw it, I was just like, what? I saw a bunch of the standard evangelical mouth runners, I'm just going to call them that, cultural enforcers. In the taco evangelical world, we're all talking about this, but instead of saying what most of us were saying was, what a terrible tragedy, what a terrible loss of life, but it looks kind of like that this was just not anything that had any hope or survival from the beginning. I don't know why anybody would have paid money to go on that, basically, in that little pill. So instead of saying what a tragedy and how horrible this is and various things, these fundamentalists, evangelicals I like to call them, but really they're more like tacos. They're the totalitarian, authoritarian church organization people who have churches that aren't linked with any kind of denomination. They're making it up as they go along. Cue the Duggars, that type. We're all carrying on that the release of the news yesterday was on purpose. It was on purpose to sink all the news coming out about Hunter Biden's laptop and Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. Joe Biden released all of this info. And I just found it to be extremely frustrating. In other news, 800 migrants died when a boat capsized. I saw that too. I saw that too. And my heart breaks for that. And I was also this morning looking at all the other tragedies that have happened on the ocean. And sure enough, there have been a ton of them. And I've always been interested in that because my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather all worked at Ingalls Shipping in New Orleans, Ingalls shipyards, building ships. And even farther back than that, on my father's side, the Irish side, they worked in the shipyards in Ireland where a lot of these great ships were built. So I've always had that back in my mind too. Yep. So, and just thinking about the migrant ships, it just breaks my heart when I hear about the Syrians or anybody from anywhere going around in these ships. And it's so many people dying, and they're not mourned because they're not wealthy. As you well know, I live in a community of very wealthy people and some very not so wealthy people. And we're odd, we're middle class. And I've seen them do all kinds of arrogant, stupid things. And it always gets way more, you heard the ridiculousness, yes it is, ridiculousness of how some of them operate and some of the things they do and say. It's mind-boggling to me. And I wanted to do a video about Costa Rica today because I saw a fatal accident the other day. And there is a reason you got to be that way. One person's death is a tragedy. 1 million is so many million is a statistic, exactly. And that's where the line seems to be drawn for all this, along with classism and wealth. And don't let anybody tell you that America is classless, because that's a bunch of bunk. America is a very classed society. Maybe not as class classes as some other countries, but yes, she has. Java Man, she has jumped onto this and it's like looked at every little thing. And this is somebody that has not been watching the coverage on the Titanic for years and years like many of us have. So she jumped in the middle of this too. So I don't want to do this in an exploitive matter. I wasn't going to do anything on it until I saw fundamentalists creating this conspiracy that said that Joe Biden released the news. Why? Because apparently the U.S. Navy knew as early as Sunday that there had been an implosion of the craft and that everybody was dead. So these people, these evangelical tacos, were beating their gums this morning saying that the Navy knew but withheld the news from the general public, which was wrong, and led everybody to think they might be still alive down there. And that the wreckage field was revealed along with the fact that there was an implosion and that there were dead bodies and everything else once the news about Hunter Biden's laptop, Hunter Biden's pleading guilty, and Joe, our president, orchestrated it all, that it was meant to cover up the Biden news. Is there anybody in the U.S. that doesn't know that Hunter Biden has pled guilty to whatever it is they accuse him of? And the only reason I say whatever it is because I can't call off the top of my head what the charges were. It had to do with the IRS and I'm sure money, baloney, and taxes. He pled guilty. That was the right thing to do. Now, they were upset because he got almost no sentence for this. Not understanding that when you plead guilty and you save the taxpayers a trial, you usually get a much lighter sentence. Not always, but many times. And the sentence he got was in line with other sentences given for similar crimes. So I'm not real surprised that he got no time. And I would like to point out that a certain former president who has been indicted has had the chance to plead guilty or cop to it himself and get away with no jail time, but because he still insists he's did nothing, he's likely going to pull some jail time if they find him guilty. If you make them go after you with the ferocity of 100,000 suns, guess what? They will make sure you got jail time no matter what it is, no matter how silly. Everyone knows about, Hunter. It's not, Josh had his, yeah, exactly. So they're using this as a political device to try and claim various things. Look, I'm not crazy about Joe Biden, just like I'm not crazy about any other guys running. I'm not crazy about anybody running yet. And that includes former and present presidents. I'm not feeling it with either one of them. But guess what? I am not willing to grab the nuclear football and run down the field and make all these claims that are just ridiculous. One thing that has just jumped out at me after going back and watching, I would recommend this for anybody interested in what happened and how it could possibly happen, and the sheer arrogance of rich people. Go back and watch Ghosts of the Abyss. Starring, I think it's Bill Pullman, the guy who was in Big Love. He was brought on to the expedition as the everyman, the one of them that was not an expert in oceanography or anything. They just brought him on as a guest of James Cameron. And I had no idea that James Cameron was that much of an obsessionalist over the Titanic, but he is, and he went down too, and has been down many, many times. Yep. They don't dive to those depths. You're right. Yeah, I think you should step away too. Anytime there's any kind of whiff of impropriety, we should have politicians that back up. Whether they quit their jobs altogether or they say, I'm backing away and this is being investigated about these people, it's always a good idea. So, it makes me laugh that they think that the Navy had any obligation to share what they heard with anybody. I can understand why they wouldn't put that information out immediately. First of all, the Navy, like every other U.S. Armed forces, they have their chains of command they have to go through with information. And why would you release that when there was no concrete evidence? I think they had to release the evidence yesterday because they started finding debris fields. And you have to just double check. knowledge of them. I think she knows that if she threw her hat into the ring, there would be a boatload of crap coming her way, and they would expose everything about her. I've been really tempted to put together a video in the same breathless, scandalous style of hers on her, just for the heck of it, but decided I'm not doing that because she's going after various people for talking about her and having their videos struck under being bullying. She did it to our very nice Joanna from Australia on one of her videos, and Joanna's probably one of the nicest creators I know of. So I'm not in favor of people using news to push their political agendas. News that has nothing to do with politics. And when you misunderstand the way the world works, which is what the evangelical does, they misunderstand common things all the time. When I was part of one of those organizations, people would say, blah, 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 blah. I said, that's not how that works. That's not how any of this works. I did see she's promoting that other documentary, and I don't know what to think about that. She's reached out to the documentarian. I hope he has enough sense to see what she's like. I hope he has enough sense, because to add her to the documentary is to lose all credibility. I think it's wonderful that all these second generation kids are getting these documentaries made about, you know, what they experience, because ultimately they're the ones that have experienced this, not those of us that came as an adult and joined all of this. And the way that they try to come up with either conspiracy theories or it came out the other day that Olivia Platt and her husband are getting a divorce. Not Platt, what is her name? What is her name? I can see. Oh, they said they were not working with her. Yeah, they're not working with her. She has contacted them since, though, is my understanding. The Platts, okay. Olivia and I think it's Ethan, suppose they're getting divorced, but that news is broke by her sister, because if there's nothing that is more inventing than, if there's something they like more than inventing crazy conspiracy theories about everything in the world that they don't understand how it works, the thing they absolutely love to do is tattle on each other. The minute they think that you have stepped out from beneath the covering because you've criticized what they do in some way, they go after you with all guns blazing. And apparently Olivia's sister has done just that. And I like Olivia. I wish her the best. I know she's got a serious love of Paris. Girl, go for it. Move there. Take your Plath money from the series and go. I would. Paris is a wonderful place. And going back over the documentaries yesterday, once I saw the 2001 expedition that Bill Pullman was part of that was filmed for Ghosts of the Abyss, and how incredibly engineered the crafts were, the mirror crafts, because they were using Russian submersibles. When I saw how engineered they were, compared to what we saw on CBS and other outlets about what Titan was like. It's like comparing the space shuttle with a roller skate with a rusted key. Not even in the same league. He was controlling it with a $15 Logitech game controller. And it looked like he had iPads or laptops set up, and they weren't using GPS. They weren't using anything but text messages to steer by. It was just like, the documentaries I've seen on the Titanic where they go down with the submersibles, it's impressive. This was not. This was just an accident waiting to happen. Like I said, living here, if I know one thing about wealthy people, it's that they love to pretend the rules of life do not apply to them. Not the rules of time, the rules of common courtesy, the rules of science. They don't believe any of that applies to them. I've seen it here in so many different ways, from having this couple I saw go up to the front desk of the hotel and demand they stop the wind because the wind was ruining their vacation. And I'm over here because they're asking the portico behind the counter to control the papagayo, and you can't control the papagayo. The other day I was walking the beach and they were all griping that it was raining every afternoon. Well, let me tell you something. If you arrive in the middle of rainy season, it's going to rain every afternoon. I don't care how much you say. Look at the people climbing Mount Everest. Yep, and the bodies. There are a ton of bodies up there. They managed to move some of them, my understanding. And the ones they haven't moved, they've been managing to bury in some shallow graves up there, including Green Boots, the Indian climber who died, who was a kind of a guidepost along the way. You knew if you reached Green Boots, you were on the right path. Everest is another one of those places, like I said, that I think is sacred, that we have no business messing with. We just don't. And just knowing how many bodies there are up there still to this day. And that's another rich man pursuit. I think they threw, I've heard that. I've heard that they threw some bodies over the side as well. But Everest is also a rich man's pursuit. And I know somebody here that every year he goes up to climb Everest. And you'll see him in town. He's the one wearing the 80-pound backpack in 103-degree heat, climbing the staircase up to the third level, the third story, where the nightclub used to be. So I just look at him and just laugh. It's like, man, you're wasting your time doing something that is strictly something you'll get an attaboy for. He routinely gives speeches here, and it's like, I went and watched him one time, and I asked him a bunch of questions about the bodies in the death zone and some other bizarre stuff. So I'm sure he was not thrilled with me one bit. Again, another place that we don't really need to be going. There was a really excellent movie that came out a few years ago about Everest and about climbing. Nature will claim it. You're right about that. And I've seen that here. I see that in my yard. If I don't make sure we weed and we stay on top of things, nature comes back every time. And before I go, I wanted to share with you an interesting thing that happened the other day here. I saw a jaguar sitting right where I am now. I was answering an email and I saw something move in the trees. I looked up like that and I thought, that's an awful long tail on that monkey. That's an awful big monkey. Well, I was watching it move through the trees and realized it was no monkey. It's a big cat. Now, I don't know if it was a jaguar or what it was, but I saw this big cat moving through, and one of my friends who's a Native American is telling me, do you know what that symbolizes in your life? And I said, no idea. I said, Native American lore says that if you see a big cat like that, it means there's a major life change coming. So I don't know if I should be afraid of that or embrace it, but life changes are natural. The only good thing I can say about what happened with the implosion is at least those people didn't suffer. There's no way that they even saw this coming, that they had any warning, and it happened in an instant. But also let it remind you that you never know what's coming. Anything could come for any one of us. I saw a young man the other day on a Costa Rican highway on a motorcycle get squashed by a tourist bus. And that's what I was going to talk about today, the finite nature of life and how you just never know. So make sure you're not angry at anybody or having, Burmese python. Oh, that would be crazy. I've never encountered any poisonous snakes more than a rattlesnake. So you never know. The finite nature of life is you could be here today, gone tomorrow. I didn't stop for the accident more than a few seconds, even though I normally do in Costa Rica, because one of the things that I've learned is to always carry a first responders kit. Now, I don't have bags of saline or anything like that, but I always have way more than you would have in a normal first aid kit that you would keep in your car. I remember we had an instance where we saw an accident and stopped. Myself and a ton of other people stopped. Same sort of thing. Somebody got hit by a car on a motorcycle, head injury. have injuries, bleed like there's no tomorrow. We couldn't scare one towel among the about 50 cars that were stopped. So now I keep old towels and all kinds of crap in my first responders kit. And my husband has tried a couple times to get me to remove it from the car, and I'm kind of like, no, I never want to see that happen. And no, I could have maybe done something and not done something. This took place at a gas station, so they came running out with their first aid kit, and the police were there like that, and this young man got whatever treatment. You have one of those kits with you too? That's a good idea. Especially if you live in a place where the ambulance may not come for 30, 40 minutes. It's better to just go ahead and be prepared. It's a Girl Scout motto, be prepared. So look at all this today, is this terrible tragedy, because it is a tragedy. Anytime something like this happens, it's going to be a tragedy. Just like 800 people drowning who were immigrants who were trying to get somewhere else, refugees. One of the things that I did on my recent vacation was I read a pile of books, and one of the ones I read that really had a profound effect on me was The Beekeeper of Aleppo. That was about Syrian refugees leaving Syria for Europe. And I've always found that to be the most heartbreaking thing. Yeah, I haven't done that. I haven't gone so far as to try and figure out how to do surgery. No. I just want to have bandages and something to bind with, make sure I've got something to make a tourniquet. I mean, a number of things after some of the things I've seen on the roads here. Okay, you guys, treasure life. Think about how we could be gone in a minute, and you don't really want to be having petty feuds with petty people all the time. And we'll just go from there. I'm still dealing with my house, putting everything back in order and everything else here, including my stupid knee. But I did get all my suitcases back and everything was there. TSA broke the zippers on both of them is what happened. Doing a search. And that always pisses me off. But you can't get new suitcases from TSA. They really make you jump through the hoops to do that. Okay, so I'm actually going to go this time, even though I'm rambling today. Love you guys. Have a wonderful Friday. Try not to stress about anything.